Imagine a time before the US dollar ruled the world, when gold, silver, and even the British pound were the true symbols of global power. The story of how the dollar became the world's reserve currency is not just about money. It's a story of wars, politics, oil, and the rise of American influence. In the early 1900s, the world's financial center wasn't New York, it was London. The British pound sterling was the global reserve currency, used in international trade and trusted by nations everywhere. The British Empire controlled vast colonies and had the world's largest navy. This dominance made the pound the backbone of global trade. But everything began to change with the First World War. World War I drained Europe's wealth. Countries like Britain and France borrowed heavily from the United States to fund their war efforts. For the first time, America transformed from a debtor nation into a creditor nation. Gold started flowing into the US, and the dollar began to quietly rise in power. When the war ended in 1918, Europe was in ruins, but America's economy was booming. The US now held a huge portion of the world's gold reserves, a sign of economic strength that would soon reshape global finance. During the 1920s, the dollar started being used more in international trade, especially in the Americas. But the Great Depression of the 1930s and the economic turmoil that followed shook confidence in global currencies. Then came World War II, a conflict that would finally seal the dollar's destiny. By the time World War II ended in 1945, Europe was once again devastated. The United States, however, emerged as the world's industrial and military powerhouse. It had provided weapons, food, and money to its allies, and by then, it controlled almost two-thirds of the world's gold reserves. America was the only major nation left with a strong, stable economy. This was the perfect moment to reshape the global financial system, and that's exactly what happened at Bretton Woods. In 1944, as the war was coming to an end, representatives from 44 countries gathered in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. They wanted to create a new international monetary system to prevent future economic chaos. The result was the Bretton Woods Agreement. Under this system, all major currencies would be tied to the US dollar, and the dollar itself would be backed by gold at a fixed rate, $35 per ounce. That meant other countries could trade their dollars for gold if they wanted to. But because the US had most of the world's gold, the system worked, and the dollar became the center of global finance. This moment officially made the US dollar the world's reserve currency. Nations began holding dollars as reserves in their central banks. International trade, oil purchases, and even foreign aid were now conducted mostly in dollars. The greenback had become more than just American money, it was global money. But this system didn't last forever. By the 1960s, the United States was spending heavily on the Vietnam War and domestic programs, while running trade deficits. Other countries started doubting America's ability to back their dollars with gold. Nations like France began demanding gold in exchange for their US dollar reserves. The gold reserves in the US started shrinking rapidly. In 1971, President Richard Nixon made a bold and controversial move. He closed the gold window, ending the direct convertibility of the dollar into gold. This decision effectively killed the Bretton Woods system. From that point on, the dollar was no longer backed by gold. It was backed only by the trust and strength of the US government. Many feared that this would cause the dollar to collapse, but the opposite happened. Even without gold backing, the dollar remained the dominant global currency. Why? Because the world still trusted America's economic and military power. The US also made a strategic deal with Saudi Arabia and other OPEC nations in the 1970s, the so-called Petrodollar system. Under this arrangement, oil would be traded exclusively in US dollars. That meant every country needing oil had to first buy dollars, increasing global demand for the American currency. This petrodollar system cemented the dollar's position as the world's financial backbone. Countries like Japan, Germany, and later China began accumulating massive dollar reserves. U.S. Treasury bonds became the safest investment on Earth, and global trade continued to revolve around the dollar. Today, nearly 60% of global foreign exchange reserves are held in US dollars. Around 80% of global trade is conducted in dollars. Whether you're buying oil from the Middle East, technology from Japan, or food from South America, the dollar is usually at the center of the transaction. The American currency has become a symbol of stability, influence, and power.